Related Life Events would like to present Alphaa A. Manuela and Renata are the wonderful founders, and they have built this amazing art platform, so they can talk about that and then answer all of your questions that you guys submitted, as well as any new questions you have throughout this talk. So I'm going to hand it over to Manuela now.
Thank you. So I think first things first, to introduce ourselves, I'm Manuela.
I'm Renata.
And you know, I'll just give you a little bit of an overview on what is Alphaa and what makes us a little bit different. Can everybody see my screen? Perfect. So Alphaa is a B2B marketplace. We connect companies like Related, for example, to the visual arts. And we believe that living with arts should be a right, not a privilege. So here are a few facts. Art promotes mental health. Art promotes community bonds. You know, you guys know that every neighborhood has their unique set of artists, and a lot of the work that we do is empowering the local artists as well and connecting them to a bunch of different audiences. The art market, even though, you know, we're going through this crisis, the COVID-19, still up till a month ago operated in a very old-fashioned way. It was very reliant on brick and mortar locations. Operations were very localized in their own specific markets. There really isn't a centralized source of information, and most of the inventory available is expensive and or limited, or, you know, so many times you have these platforms which are selling stock imagery and posters with no real collectible value. So it's one of the reasons why we came into the market. Our mission is to connect companies to the visual arts and revolutionize the way that people interact with the visual arts and consume art products as well. So Alphaa offers the quality of a gallery with the speed of online, high customization, and accessible pricing. We'll go through a little bit more in depth on what are the different collectibles available in the art market and great ways to, you know, start collecting, which is the objective of our talk here today. But on Alphaa, everything that you find will be on museum quality materials. Everything is customizable in different sizes and framing options. We have a trading platform where, you know, if you do get tired of the work that you purchased, you can come back to us, and our pricing is extremely accessible. We deliver anywhere in 3 continents in 7 business days, and everything is made to order. And we have features like 2D and 3D room views where art can be tried out in different environments. If you look at our backgrounds, you'll see a few examples of some of our digital mock-ups. So, you know, how we take on projects is we can go as in depth or as superficial, depending on, you know, the client's need. So for something bigger, we could do some research on the local market, bring in local artists, create a project timeline, ideate different mediums and styles, design and eventually execute. Or you can just come into our platform. We provide a discount code for the entire Related network and purchase the work of your choice and have that delivered to your house in 7 business days. We have 3 main curatorial models. One is through special projects. So we collaborate with independent curators, with galleries, and we offer our platform so that they can bring in their network of artists, and we'll do the boring part for them, which is production, framing, delivery, marketing, all of the things that artists really don't want to do. We open calls around social and environmental causes. So we were scheduled to originally have an event for Earth Day together with a group of artists and activists. That's still happening, but it's now going to be virtual, and we'll have more details for that afterwards. Number 3, which is how we started, is we crowdsource talent. So anyone, if you're an artist or if you know someone that's an artist, which is usually the case, you can join our platform and submit works. We have monthly voting cycles where our audience then selects their favorite artworks, and we then produce prints out of the winners. Custom finishes, we work with, you know, any different support from canvas to photographic paper, archival paper, metal plated frames, any different coloring in frames, mats, no mats. We're available for it. Even if you see something on the platform that you like, but you'd like that in a different size or a different finish, please reach out. We can usually do that. Since everything is made to order, it gives us the flexibility for that. And all of our artworks are limited editions. They come with certificates of authenticity, which means that, once you purchase an Alphaa artwork, you don't just get that artwork itself, but you get the image copyright in perpetuity. We're launching blockchain-backed certificates now, so you'll have your entire collection in a little vault. And for companies like Related, for example, we help them transform their walls into mobile galleries. What does that mean? All of our artwork can be connected via QR codes back to the platform, creating a new tool and a new channel for people to connect with these new artists, learn more about the work, and even purchase their own versions of those works. We launched, so one of the questions that we received, we'll go more in depth into that afterwards, is why we had so many South American artists.
Latin American artists.
Yeah, and that's because we're both Latin American. We're both from Brazil. We launched our MVP in Brazil through a scholarship initiative where we partnered with the big galleries in Latin America, and we launched a limited edition T-shirt initiative which funded 25 scholarships for independent artists. And once we did that, we received around 700 submissions for the 25 spots, and we said, this is where we should be operating. We should be creating opportunities for up and coming talent. That's where we can really add value to the world. In 2017, we moved the company to New York, and now we're expanding to Europe and soon to South Africa. So there's going to be artists from all of these different locations. And one of the features that we're also rolling out is to search the artist pool via geolocation. Which is, really cool, and a really cool tool to build more artist communities. Me and Renata were
the founders.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Do you want to talk about the slide?
No, I thought it was done. So I was going to start talking about the first question, since you're already talking about the different locations. But keep going.
No, I just had like some more examples of projects that we've done in the past. Different real estate projects for 5-star properties. This is a 3D printed sculpture that we produced together with a Cuban artist, Alex Arechea, and they're actually a miniature version of sculpture. These were 18 feet tall along Park Avenue. So it's a fun way to create something which is more tangible out of something which was very much unreachable, because no one in New York has the space for an 18 feet tall sculpture, but you can still appreciate the work. A project for West Elm with a group of artists from a very poor community in Brazil. So really empowering entrepreneurship in the arts as well. This is a show house that we did in Brazil, where we opened a call for photographers that worked in black and white photography in the textile industry. And hotels, which are a very big part of our DNA, not just on the content side. This is a space we had in Soho as well, where we mixed and matched works from older artists with up and coming prints as well, to show that you really can use different mediums and build a fantastic collection. A design house we did in the Hamptons, where we did 2 days of full programming with a group of female artists from Yale. We were helping them self-fund a catalog. The Artivism Challenge, which was one of our open calls around ocean conservation. And this is our home here in New York, the Yard, a co-working space on the Upper West Side. Whenever we all get to leave our houses, you're all welcome to come and visit us. Another project for the Faena Hotel in Miami. And that's all I have. So we can dig into the questions.
Yeah. And it's funny, while Manuela was talking, I was thinking that we should have renamed this talk Collecting Art 101 in times of Corona, because I think obviously the economy is changing dramatically, and for the art world, I think the changes are going to be even more tangible. And one of the questions that we got, it's not the first one, sorry, I'm going to skip and then go back, was that art is typically something I like to see in person before purchasing. How have you adapted to the current climate and technology? And I think that's something that, like, we never saw technology as a way to replace the interactions that happen in the art market, and we definitely agree that art is something that you should see in person, and that was one of the reasons why we chose to commercialize prints online most exclusively, because this is the closest that you're gonna get from like what you see on your screen to what you see in person. An art work has a life on its own. Like when you see it in person, it's completely different. And even with prints, depending on the material print, the size of print, it becomes a completely different work. So since the very beginning, we saw the technology tools that we have available and technology tools that we developed for our platform as a way to enhance the way that we do our work and to facilitate a lot of the art collecting process. I think one example of this is like what you can see on our backgrounds, those digital mock-ups, like in 3D or 2D viewing tools, which allow us, especially when we're completing bigger projects, to really plan ahead, like, and like give a little bit of color to our buyers. Like Manuela explained, we work a lot with companies, and we do large projects such as a hotel. And like normally, like if you're selling like a more expensive art piece, like one thing that art advisors and galleries usually do is like bringing the artwork into the client's space so we can try it out. But since we're dealing mostly with print, that would become like impossible for us to do. And a solution that we found was really creating this 3D viewing room where you can try out the different artworks and see, like, within that context, what is it that you like and what you don't like. You know, Manu, would you like to add something maybe like about
No,
the VR?
I'll show some examples of how the mock-ups look and how the
Yeah,
artwork really does, change the whole look and feel of an environment. And we invite you as well, if you have a space that you think needs some sprucing up and you want to send us a picture, we're happy to send some suggestions. So this is, I think Renata created these specifically for the talk. And it's just illustrating how, the little changes really do change the whole ambience of the space. These
yeah,
in perspective or
yeah.
great achievements. But there was another question that I think we didn't get to address, which was, are there any specific regions that we're seeing new talent coming from, or artists that we are seeing as great new artists? And I think it's a fantastic moment for the arts. Artists are extremely creative, and they do, see the world in a very different way. Latin America, as Renata mentioned, has been a little behind in terms of pricing for a long time. But one of the regions that we were very surprised by the quality of the artwork and how the pricing was much lower as well was India. When we went down for the art fair and took in we went to like 3 or 4 of the major cities just to explore art programming and take a look at up and coming talent, especially female artists in India and in Southeast Asia. I think there's so many restrictions that they face in their daily lives that their voices, when they do get out, I used to have a joke, they don't even speak, they scream. So I can, Reina Kalat is one of them that I was really impressed with. There's a lot of fantastic Brazilian artists, which are also women from the older generations, So all of the Ligia Clark, Ligia Papi, they've had shows here in all of the big institutions, the Met Breuer, MoMA. We can happily, like afterwards, please get our contacts from Amy or Jessica, and we can share either historical artists that we think were important to really change the way the art market organizes itself, and up and coming talents as well on our platform. I think a great way to look at up and coming talents on our platform is to go through the special projects part of it, because there's a lot of artists which are mid-career-ish. They have gallery representations, they work with independent curators, but they're still emerging. So they're also emerging in pricing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and I think obviously New York is such a huge art center, but as a lot of you might know, it became very expensive for most artists, and because of that, we started seeing like a migration from Manhattan to Brooklyn, and now like what we're seeing is a artist going from the East Coast to West Coast, and in particular, Los Angeles, where they have hosted for the second year Freeze Art Fair, which we also have in New York. So it's interesting to see like how artists relocate, and that's usually something which is very tied related to like real estate development as well. Like we've done projects in Miami, for instance, where we see that places where like then are going to be developed, like our first taken for art projects like by artists, and like that happened in Wynwood, and it's now happening in downtown Miami. So like we're usually, because we work so closely with real estate companies, like it's interesting to see like how that like it's like very interconnected, like, and we usually try to tie up our artist acquisition strategy to our biz dev. Like big request that we often get is to work with local artists. So whenever we're expanding to a new geographical location, we also create partnerships with art schools, art residencies, like independent artists and curators from that geographical location, to try to like bring in like more like and talent, more talent into like our radar, like, and also the radar of the people that we work with, and really like giving an alternative platform to a lot of those people to be able to show like and have a voice and make a living out of art. I think like right now it's going to be like very important for us to continue developing the work we're doing, and like I would like to address this like a little bit more like later on, like like how the market is really changing, and how we see this change as actually something that was about to happen, needed to happen, and the work that we're doing, which like maybe like 2-3 years ago like wasn't like so well accepted, like in between more how do I say like traditional like people in the art market now, like people really seeing the value of having an online platform, and if that's not going to be the main role, at least that's like once this is done, I think it's going to be like something that people are going to try to use more, at least the way we do, to start doing like their research and get to know what is out there, what is available, and then like dive deeper like into the different areas like of interest.
Yeah, you have to think of the art market as one of those lagging markets. So they were, how the gallery still operated, so reliant on brick and mortar locations, documenting, which was 100% analog. And overnight, the whole market has changed. You know, it's very sad to think of what's going to be happening to the New York galleries in the next couple of months, because they were already very leveraged businesses. So to be closed for this amount of time is very complicated for the business model, but it's also an opportunity for them to reinvent themselves. And we're also launching some programming on helping traditional art businesses on to come online, and on offering tools that we've been using for a very long time, and finding products which are more acceptable for online. So using 3D printing for sculptures, even though they're still limited edition sculptures, and using some products that look exactly the same, like we discussed before. So maybe this is a time to start collecting, but to start collecting through editions, because editions are 100% faithful to what you're seeing on your screen, and they're a great way as well to connect with new talent, because it's a smaller buy-in, it's a smaller investment to start working with these artists, and you can then at some other point in time schedule a visit, see an artist studio, which I think is a great way to really get into the process, is understanding the artist a little bit better, and watching artist interviews, seeing if what it is that makes you so attracted to that specific work. There's another question, which I think is a great question for you, actually, Renata, because it's your area. How and where do you source art? Are there any websites, publications to follow,
Yeah,
read,
no,
to keep myself updated
no,
with
I
art
was
news,
gonna,
events, and opportunities?
no, I was gonna jump into that because I think it's very much related to what you're saying. Like, and also like one thing that I would like to bring to your attention is like, for instance, like 2-3 weeks ago, we were supposed to have Art Basel Hong Kong, and obviously the art fair got canceled, and they launched a new platform where people could visit the fair virtually. So this is a trend that we've been seeing with a lot of like the bigger galleries, like, and other art platforms like Art Basel, for instance, where there is like a huge shift like for the online, and it's happening quickly. Like, and I think people are still trying to figure out like how to bridge the gap in between the experience that you have offline and online. But like I said, I think like in an ideal world, once this is all done, I think people are going to rely a lot more on technology tools like an art platforms like our own to do this initial
But even for
research.
Basel, I think a turning point is the art market has always been very closed, and in terms of pricing, right? It's always
Yeah,
been one of the complaints that a lot of new entrants have. Like, how do you even know that this is the right price to pay for what artist, or how do you filter the quality? And Art Basel Hong Kong, and even this new David Zwirner platform, the one that you sent me yesterday, they all have pricing. And this is
yeah.
this is completely changing the way that the market has organized itself. It means that price discrimination can no longer exist. There's obviously still going to be discounts, but it's an opportunity to understand the bigger picture as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think like I believe that most of you might have like some familiarity with the art market, and you know that sometimes walking to a gallery like it's not the most pleasant experience. But like we're very fortunate to have so many options in New York, and I think starting like in Chelsea, where you have like the most traditional bigger galleries, there are always like a lot of art openings, like, and I think like that's a fantastic way for you to get more, if you're not familiarized with this scene, like, and start going to art openings. I'm gonna share afterwards a platform that I use to check out the events that happen. It's called Art Cards. Like, and there you can see the website is not fantastic, but you can see like all of the art events that are happening and create it like your own schedule. So really like try to like be out there, and walk around and talk to people, and don't feel intimidated like ever to ask questions, because like I think like there is a huge difference when you speak with an artist versus when you're talking to a gallerist or an art curator. And for us, like the difference is that like those art professionals usually try to explain like the works, like, and the context, like, and all like around like that art piece, like in a very complicated way, while like when you're talking to an artist, you tend to see that like it's usually like way simpler, like, and the motivations like for him or her to create that artwork really comes from the heart, like, and like, you know, and it's usually talking about universal like experiences that like any of us would be able to relate to. So really like it's very interesting if you can like eventually like get to like meet the artists, like, and like go visit art studios. Like that's a very different experience from what you're gonna get from an art gallery. Of course, like it's not that easy to get there, but I think a good opportunity would be Bushwick Open Studios, for instance. It happens once or twice a year, I think once a year. And like you have a schedule, like, you know, like where the studios are, and just like dive into like those different little worlds, you know, like every artist, like you can see that like there is like a little world that they create inside of those studios.
And what would you say are some good resources for people that are dabbling into the market to find out what's going on, artists to follow, etc.?
Yeah, I think art cards, like for the art events, we still use a lot. Arts is a pretty complete platform. I have a bigger list. Like the New York Times, obviously, I think it's always like the reviews are very good. Like, and they also share some of like the main art events that are happening. We are very fortunate in New York. We have like an extremely like big amount of like art events like happening like nonstop. But we also have two big art weeks, Armory in March and Freeze in May. And besides from visiting the main fairs, which like everyone should do, like there are a lot of satellite fairs, and I think like those are like usually where the most interesting things are happening, because like it's artists who are not as established, like and you, it's a little bit more accessible, like not only in terms of pricing, but like in terms of like getting to know people, like and having like interesting conversations. So definitely like, and one of my favorites, which I think Manuela would share, that is Independent, which is also like at the Spring Studio building in Tribeca. So
And they're all going online for sure. Like I've already gotten emails from all of the fairs. Basel, Switzerland is the one that I think they changed the dates, but let's see if it's still going to happen physically. But even Armory that just happened, they're launching some online programming, and a lot of virtual programming is coming. So, you know, sign up for the newsletters in all of these different art fairs. The museums are moving a little bit slower, but we're seeing how we can help as well with that. But
Yeah.
Google has that fantastic tool as well for the virtual visits and the art camera, that you can really zoom in to to historical pieces and learn, and you know, get that up and close view that you wouldn't even have the capacity to do in a museum. Oh, there's a question here in the chat.
Yeah. So what are the benefits for artists to join your platform, and how you create artists from anyone that can join? Would you like to take that?
Sure. So benefits for joining the platform. Number one, it's free. It will always be free. The idea is to really provide a tool for artists to connect with much bigger audiences and to find a way to monetize their work as well. Number two, since we don't sell original works online, we do on a case by case place original works in projects. And once we do original works, we only take a 20% commission. The artist keeps 80% versus a gallery that takes 50%. Number three, for editions, we take care of everything. We take care of production, framing, shipping, and we have production in place in 3 continents, which means you can immediately start exporting your work internationally with no cost. You know, we pay great royalties on sales for all of our editions, and it also creates the possibility to build pricing for original work through a thermometer that you have for the editions. And curation is with you here. Why don't you tell them about curation?
Wait, what was the second part of the question? Sorry, I lost it.
How you curate the artists, or if anyone can join.
Oh yeah. So Yes and no. I think Manuela touched on this briefly before. So the platform started as a democratic platform. Anyone can join, can create a profile. And one of our core goals was really to bring more players into this market and play a little bit with the idea of like meritocracy, like and who has the power to say what is good and what is bad art. And we know from our experiences on a more traditional art market that it's usually not based on talent. It's a lot. Of course, you need to be talented, but like you also need to be at the right place at the right time, like have the right connections. Like, and once like someone who is influential says that your work is good, you're done. You know. So that still happens. What Manuela is showing, the voting platform, you're all welcome to check it out and give your opinions and help us selecting some of the works. But in the past 3 years, we've been more focused on creating special projects with independent curators, art schools, and different art institutions, where we invite a curator to create a selection of artworks, which we're then make available as prints on the platform. This is not exactly it. Why don't you show maybe the Daniele Rocha? Yeah. So that's a Brazilian curator actually from based out of the Bay Area, and this is an artist that we've been working together in a project for the Four Seasons in San Francisco. So like what Manuela explained before, I think for a lot of independent curators or like smaller galleries, prints are not necessarily their main focus. And this is what we know how to do really, really well. So we take away from their hands the more unsexy part of the work, which would be production, logistics, and we let them do what they know how to do best. Like in the case of the artist is creating, like in the case of like the curator, like creating those relationships and like developing like a beautiful group of artworks that will then be shared. So yeah, like we love partnerships. We love like letting people do what they know how to do best. Like, and I think like we are specialists like on something, like, and whenever like we're not a specialist on that area, like we bring in someone else who is to complement our work. And the third way, which is like our preferred, I would say, is by creating campaigns around social and environmental causes. And I think what Manuela was showing before is our COVID-19 relief campaign. So we are starting to invite different artists to, like, in this case, like it's not like targeted to like the subject, but an artist to donate a percentage of like their revenues that we make through the sale of those prints to a specific cause. Like for this one, we're going to be donating for the World Health Organization. But if I could show you a different project, I think it would be the Artivism Challenge, which was the first one that we did on that line. So we created a partnership with an NGO called Oceanic Global, which gave us the guidelines about important messages about ocean conservation. So there you can see like some of the messages, and then we open a call for artists from all over the world to submit artworks which could represent those different issues like and solutions. And so like we always try to give a more optimistic perspective to those issues. But the result was beautiful, and I think you're going to be able to see a little bit more on that hopefully on Earth Day on the 22nd, where we're going to have two of the artists participating on the talk, as well as the NGO founder. And like the reason why for that is like we know that a picture is worth 1,000 words, like, and I think something that you see, it's hard to forget. So we usually say that once you see, you can't unsee. And some of those images are so powerful that I think the impact is immediate. And hopeful, and it is a universal language. So it doesn't matter if we're talking about this here in the US or Brazil or India, like the issues are usually the same. And I think everyone can understand what we're trying to say by looking at any of those images, or some more than others.
But just to answer your question, yes, any artist can join. The platform is open for anyone to join.
Sorry.
So please submit work.
I know.
You can come in either through a special project, or you can come in by yourself. You can just submit your profile, and we would recommend submitting the works to the crowd curation. They're super cool, super engaging. It's a great way to bring your audience into the platform as well. Sometimes people haven't seen your work and are super pleasantly surprised. So there's different elements to it.
Yeah, and I think now that we're approaching the end of our talk, maybe like we jump into our last question, which is how to make an art investment decision, and do certain types of art increasing value versus like others, and is there a spend threshold for investment in a piece? Who want to?
Sure, I'll be brief. So I think number one, buy with your heart, not thinking of an investment. Every time I've purchased an artwork because I really loved it, it's something that went up in value. Obviously, do your diligence, understand what that artist's doing. Has he had shows in important institutions? That's usually the number one thing. Look at their CV and look for museum shows. Or shows in important galleries, or his relationship with other groups of artists, and if you love it, buy it. I've bought a lot of stuff in art fairs. I love art fairs because you get an opportunity to really look at everything together. It can be overwhelming, so do some research before. So if there's an artist, like for example, let's say like JR, I wouldn't buy JR, by the way, because I think it's an open-ended edition. He can produce
unless you love it a lot.
Unless you love it or not a lot, but then you have to bear in mind that that's not going to have any commercial value. Not as an investment. And always do the math between how much an original work costs and the proportion of how much a edition should cost. So for example, if an original work costs $10,000 and it's an edition of 10, each piece should cost $1,000. That proportion should keep. And that's a great way as well to know if things are expensive or if they're inexpensive. You can use that rationale to price. What about you?
Yeah. No, I agree with everything that I said. I was gonna just add that if you look at historical pricing for artists, like auction records, like you would see that there are a lot of artists who were selling so well 50 years ago, and now you don't even know their names anymore. So it fluctuates a lot, and because of that, buy something that you really love, because in the case that art piece it's worth nothing in the future, at least you're gonna enjoy looking at it. But the other thing which I was gonna add, which is not exactly about investing, is the role that social media and those instant interactions play on the development of an artist. And the example I was gonna bring is an artist who is represented by one of the biggest galleries, Oscar Murillo, and he has had a bunch of shows everywhere, and he's so young, and I remember I had the opportunity to work briefly with this gallery around that time, and seeing how everyone was talking about him, and how he was so young, and how that changed his trajectory as an artist, and he decided to start doing completely different things because he rebelled about it. Or then you have another example of for instance, a Brazilian artist, Vicky Muniz, which maybe a lot of you guys know, who and a lot of artists like this, I just thought about him because like it's very familiar, but they find a perfect formula which works so well, and they become very famous for those artworks, and it's very hard for them to
Break free.
continue developing.
Yeah.
Yeah, break free. So it's very different, I think, for you to be an artist nowadays than what it used to be before technology, like, and social media especially, you know. So yeah.
Okay. I don't know if Amy,
uh,
Jessica, any last questions, or
My only question would be, do certain types of art have more value than others? Like if it's canvas and oil, is there like a sort of formula you should follow for what will give you a better return on your investment?
sure. So return on investment, it's hard to tell because it really depends on the artist's trajectory, like we were talking about. But there are certain things that we know. And oil painting has to cost more because oil takes 3 months to dry. So if
yeah.
you just think of the time that the artist inputs into that piece, it's already a big investment in his own personal time, not just in terms of materials. Obviously, there's cases of, sculptures that are manufactured, which also have more expensive materials. But what I would say is the
But then you
best
have a
way.
Jeff Koons, which is gonna get a basketball and put inside of a fish tank, and that's gonna cost millions, you know. So it's a lot about the brand, like, of the artist too, you know. Like, so it can be obviously like that, like, materials influence, but most of the times you're buying a brand.
Yeah, but if Jeff Koons painted in oil, can you imagine? If his work takes 2 years to be delivered with a massive manufacturing structure,
Yeah.
people would never get his pieces. So anyway, yeah, in terms of return over investment, look at the artist as a business. Analyze what are the indicators, analyze what gallery he works with, analyze the number of shows he does, analyze the variety of works, and analyze if he's in any prominent museum collections. Those are usually the most important factors for, if you're looking at art as an investment.
My other question is, I know a lot of us, especially now on social, we see a lot of artists that have sort of gone viral. Like if you look at the Alec Monopolies of the world, or like you mentioned, I mean, Jeff Koons, or even Cause. Like, what are your
Cost.
thoughts on these people that are just totally going viral? Is there value in that, or do you think it's just sort of makes it saturated?
Jeff Koons and Damien Hirst, I'll separate because I think they're both geniuses. They're creative geniuses, and I'm a big fan of Jeff Koons myself. Like, what I wouldn't give to have a balloon dog, even though it's a balloon dog, and so many people have it. But
Same.
there are other artists like the Instagram artists, and Cause is a big question mark because he's so new and the whole thing just blew up. And it's a little bit like the example of the Brazilian artist that Renata was saying. He found a formula to success and he just keeps at it. But if you look at Damien Hirst and Jeff Koons, which are maybe the biggest artist influencers ever, like Damien Hirst did an auction of all of his work, and all of the different things that these guys have explored and all of the different movements and the breadth of the work, I think that separates them from a cultural phenomenon to a fantastic artist. That's just my thought.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
You agree? That easy? You never agree with me.
That's why we still exist. We're in constant conflict and questioning our decisions, but we get there. I don't know if anyone would like to add anything else. And we can share our contact information as well. So like if any questions come up afterwards.
Yeah. If there's any other questions, you can feel free to shout them out or put them in the chat. Otherwise, everyone should have Manuela and Renata's information. I put it in the chat here, as well as the resident benefit that's available to Related. And we will make all of these resources, like the, I think what was it? Art cards and independent
Yeah.
and all of the sort of
We
resources.
can send a list.
Yeah, we can send a list. We have a big list of
We have a big list.
different resources. Yeah.
So we'll make that available to everyone along with this video. But other than that, I think this was great. And I definitely learned a lot. So I hope everyone did as well.
Thank you for having us. It was a pleasure to be on. Yes.
Thanks,
Thank you so much, Amy.
Everyone have a good rest of your weekend.
Yes.